from my experience, generally speaking, I know this doesn't mean that it's everybody, people's views on Halloween tend to have to do with what they did growing up or what they've been told. And the problem with that is it's not always founded on objective facts. My name's Matt Sargeant. I'm the face behind the Facebook page Redeeming Halloween. I also am the author of the book by the same name, Redeeming Halloween. Halloween for me didn't mean anything personally for the longest time, and then when I had kids, it began to mean something to me. It began to matter because I didn't want my children, my family, to participate in something that they shouldn't if it's inappropriate for Christians, but I didn't want to do something just based on what I'd been told. I wanted to know the facts about it. I did my own research, and that actually culminated in the book Redeeming Halloween and inspired the Facebook page. That page is by no means just a billboard for the book. It shows a lot of insights and inspirations on what a Christian approach to Halloween would look like. It's founded on the principles that are in the book. The book takes you through the history of the holiday to kind of clear up what any misconceptions are. What does the Bible say about the themes that really are part of what Halloween's true fabric is? And then it gives ideas on how to apply that. If you're interested, you could find that book on Amazon. There's also a link on the Facebook page to the Amazon page and also to the bulk order link where you can get 10 or more for a pretty steep discount. Great idea, for a small group or Bible study book club. But the book is not the point of this video or this series of videos. In this series, I want to address the objections that are given against Halloween by Christians. And of course, you've probably guessed by the names of my projects that I am in favor of someone who wants to celebrate Halloween out of a clear conscience. I hope that wouldn't inspire some of you to just tune out because it's really not that simple coming to that conclusion. People will come to different conclusions based on their own experience, based on their own convictions, and that's really what the book is about. In fact, I really like this review that was done by someone who read the book. Regardless of the decision you end up making, you will learn new facts and be forced to think. So that review was made by an individual named Ben, and as you can see, Ben didn't say pro-Halloween, against Halloween, this is what everyone should think. He said the point is you need to think, and that's what Christians should do. And my heart behind these projects isn't so that everyone will think the same thing that I think, or that everybody will be pro-Halloween, but that people will look at the actual truth about the holiday and come to their own conclusions based on objective fact and personal convictions and not judge other people who disagree. In fact, some of us, myself included, find an opportunity to encourage our faith and not compromise it during Halloween. That's what excites me about this season, is the truths that can be associated with Halloween and even have been associated with Halloween through the centuries, and that encourage our faith and what the Bible tells us about the fall season and about the themes that are legitimately associated with Halloween and not all the things that have been added to it. So like I said, in these videos, we're going to look at the objections, and we're going to look at one objection per video. So your question might be something different. So subscribe for future videos because more are coming and you'll see more of your questions answered there. I'm not going to go into a ton of details about everything behind each question because those details are in the book. Those details are on the Facebook page. So that's the context that we're dealing with here. I think the most common objection I hear about Halloween is its pagan origins. So that's the one we're going to look at. Halloween's earliest inspiration appears to have been around the time of Christ in the Celtic regions, that's Ireland and neighboring areas, where the people, as far as we can tell, celebrated a holiday referred to as Samhain. And this took place from October 31st to November 2nd. And we don't really know a whole lot of what actually happened during this time of year with these people. So that's the first thing that we need to consider when we get concerned about pagan origins around Halloween, is we're not even sure what they are. So we can't really come to solid conclusions about that. And we also need to consider that when we judge other people who celebrate something that we believe has pagan origins, We don't even really know what they are. Now, the most prominent belief associated with Samhain is really responsible, as far as we can tell, for the supernatural and superstitious elements of Halloween. Namely, that the veil between the physical and spiritual worlds was thin enough for ghosts to pass back and forth between the two realms. There's actually another pagan influence to Halloween, possibly, that we don't hear a lot about, and that's the festival of Pomona, held in the same time of year, held in the same place after Rome conquered the Celtic areas. This was not a spooky holiday like Samhain may have been. This was a romantic holiday, and we get traditions such as bobbing for apples from Pomona. You may remember doing that depending on your age when you were a kid. I don't think they really do it anymore because I think COVID kind of opened our eyes to the fact that bobbing for apples is pretty gross and a good way to spread germs. But regardless, we see some influences from this pagan festival as well. So are Samhain and Halloween the same holiday? They are not. They are objectively and historically not. Halloween originated hundreds of years later in a different part of the world at a completely different time of the year, actually. Halloween was not always in October. In fact, Halloween is the eve of All Saints' Day, and All Saints' Day started in the church and eventually was moved to November 1st, making Halloween October 31st. The reason that we see some potential similarities between Samhain and Halloween is because the two shared a day on the calendar for many, many years. Up to this point, that sums up the pagan influences on Halloween. You may be wondering about things like Satanism, witchcraft, murder, things that we see in our secular, cultural Halloween celebrations. Those things are irrelevant to the origins of Halloween. They did not start in the actual holiday. They did not become part of Halloween because of the pagan influences, so they're unrelated to this topic. We'll deal with those topics another time, but they're unrelated to the issue we're dealing with now. Halloween started in the church, but it has pagan influences. What do we do with those? Well, first, let's define pagan. Pagan doesn't mean evil. It doesn't mean even worldly. It means secular. Something that is pagan is something that originated without direct revelation from God or from God's people. And that's most things. Things like birthdays are pagan. Wedding rings are pagan. Even kings are pagan. Israel had a king, and kings are a big part of God's plan, but the nations of the world had kings long before Israel. Most modern holidays are pagan. I mean, even here in the United States, we have holidays like Independence Day and Memorial Day. Those are pagan holidays in the sense they're not religious, and yet there's nothing wrong with celebrating those holidays. In fact, many Christians take Memorial Day and find an opportunity to take the theme of sacrifice and apply that to Christ. And I'm all for that. I'm all for taking things in our culture and using them to point to Jesus. However, when some Christians apply that same logic to Halloween, and it's not even as much of a leap because Halloween has roots in faith, but when people do that, sometimes there's judgment that goes on that we shouldn't be trying to sanctify this holiday. And that really comes from a misunderstanding of the holiday and an unfair balance between which holidays we can make those ties and which ones we shouldn't. You're probably aware that religious holidays like Christmas and Easter have pagan influences, just like Halloween. And some Christians don't celebrate those holidays for that reason, but other Christians say that it's wrong to put out a jack-o'-lantern, but it's okay to put up evergreens a couple months later, even though both were used potentially by pagans for the same reason. Most things didn't originate from God's people, making them pagan by definition, but that doesn't mean we have to throw them out. And we could get very technical and a little silly with this and apply this to things like sports and medicine and technology and entertainment, because not all of it was originated by Christians, making them pagan by definition. So we have to be careful when we look at something and say this has pagan influences and therefore that makes it wrong. So to be clear here, what are these pagan influences? We talked about Samhain, which really brings about the superstition and the supernatural that we see at Halloween, and also the fear of death. Remember, we're not really sure what these people did, but they may have dressed up to avoid ghosts. They put faces on vegetables to scare away evil spirits. These are the traditions that we have at Halloween that were influenced by pagans. Now, first of all, anyone who does these things today is not doing them for the same reason. They're not doing it out of fear. They're doing it because it's fun. It's a tradition. Some people, like myself, find opportunities to encourage our faith with them. And it's not disqualified just because it originated in paganism. In fact, the pagans didn't even do it for those reasons for very long. Eventually, the children of the Celts would dress up as ghosts because they enjoyed it. It was fun. And I think there's a neat lesson there where we don't have to be afraid of these things. That's what the Celts eventually realized. These are things we don't have to be afraid of, so we can have fun with it. And isn't the Christian life where we come to Christ in our fear and we realize that we don't have to be afraid anymore, so we live life with wisdom and purpose and confidence. We're not afraid, we don't throw it out, but we begin to redeem life for what can be used to encourage our faith. And I know we can't apply that logic with everything, but it is a valid point to make, especially when we consider a holiday with the themes and history that Halloween has. Remember, these pagan practices don't have power, and they never did. So they're not anything to be afraid of. Carving a pumpkin does not attract evil spirits any more than it repelled them 2,000 years ago. A jack-o'-lantern is just a vegetable. That's all it is. People who put them out are doing it just because it's a tradition. We don't have to look down on people for this. We can actually redeem this practice, that we don't have to be afraid of evil spirits. That just like the Celts believed that the jack-o'-lantern might scare away evil spirits, we know that we have light in us that keeps the evil out of our lives. As Christians, we don't have to reject everything just on the basis of it having pagan influences or originating in the world. In fact, I think we undermine our mission if that's our stand on everything, and certainly if we judge other people who don't agree with our convictions. So my book and my Facebook page go into details about what those pagan influences are and how we can respond to those. So these resources are there for you to help you wrestle with those kinds of things and have an honest discussion about it. And the point isn't that everybody will think the same thing, but that we will see that there is validity on both sides. That some people may have experiences or just preferences where they don't want to celebrate Halloween. And other people who do celebrate Halloween, there's validity to that. There is biblical truth that can be celebrated, and there's nothing inherently wrong with the origins and history of the holiday. Celebrating Halloween is a matter of conscience. If you decide from the objective facts that it's not something you want to celebrate, I encourage that. I support that. And I'm not going to look down on somebody who disagrees with me. And people who decide that they're not going to celebrate Halloween shouldn't be looking down on people who choose to, because there is validity in celebrating Halloween as a Christian. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. Hit like, hit subscribe so that you can be notified of future videos that will address other objections. Again, I encourage you to check out the Facebook page for Redeeming Halloween. That's facebook.com/Redeeming Halloween. You'll find a lot of content that shows all year round what this Christian perspective on these Halloween-related topics looks like, but especially in October, the content really ramps up. Thank you again, and happy Halloween.